So now that we know that this is kind of the heart of the application, how do we get information in here? That's in the next question, right? Now we have to have a look at the main TS file just shortly right here. This guy right here inside the source app, there's a main TS file. Now this is very simple, but this is actually a file that specifies which module to use. Now Angular has modules that's kind of a set of components, a set of a code that can be used as well, it's a module, right? And then you have components that can be put inside modules. You can also put other modules inside modules. So a module is kind of a chunk of code that we can reuse, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We're saying the module that we want to use for this application, this Ionic application, is actually the app module right here. Now we are getting that from this folder. That's what this means right here. It means we're getting it from the current folder and then something called app.module and then .ts. Now the TS is just something the system knows, so you don't have to put in .ts here all the time. It'll just figure out that's what it should say. So the TS file, we're looking for something called add module TS, and you guess what? Yeah, there it is, add module TS. So what's inside this guy? Well, this is kind of the configuration file for your current Ionic application. This knows all the files that we need right now to kind of start building this Ionic setup. It'll know every component you'll work with, any module you need to work with this. Like here are some Ionic or Angular specific modules that we need. Here are some of the modules that we're just using right now. We have the My App, that's the main component. Then we have the home and the list page that you're seeing when you're clicking around here, right? Home, and you have the list. So these are the two components we have there. Then we have some status bar and splash screen. We haven't even touched that yet. Let's just skip it for now. But that's kind of what a module does for you. It kind of brings back, combines all the different classes and components and other modules that you need to build your application. So that's kind of what this module can do. Now we can have submodules, but we're not going to touch that in this simple Ionic course. We'll try and make an extended one later on. So we have something here called add ng module. Now the add sign tells me that this is an Angular specific declaration explaining that here is a module that begins right here. And the module, if I scroll down, is going to have the name app module. That's kind of how this works. Now all of this code just specifies some information about what should go inside the module, what the module can use. But the module is called app module, so back to the main TS, that's where you get this name right here. Sweet, so that was the first step. Now we are inside the module and we know how that kind of binds to the main TS file. Good. Now what are all these crazy things down here? Let's start with the declaration. If you don't have information here that declares your actual modules, your code will break because the application doesn't know there's a list page component inside your setup. So it doesn't know it exists. So that's why you need here to define every time you make a new component, you need to define right here in the declarations in your module that you're going to use that component. Now the CLI will do most of this for you, but sometimes you might want to remove stuff and then you'll have to do it manually by going and removing these guys in here. But let's just keep it just the knowledge of actually you have to declare your modules in here when you want to use them. The imports right here, now that's third party, that's in our case Angular stuff, but that could be stuff that you import from other modules, so it's using other modules out there. Like this module right here is actually explaining that the root application is my app. And that's again back to the index.html. It knows now that the root application should be put inside this root component right here. That's kind of what we're saying here inside the module. Right here we're saying Ionic module should have this root. Now the Ionic module is probably a huge module. We don't need to understand all of it. We just need to know there's a for root to kind of explain where should this application start, right? But that's kind of what you use the imports for. The bootstrap, that's kind of just starting the application. And we're using Ionic app. Again, a lot of code in here to actually create a Ionic app. We don't have to worry about it. This is just, we are going to make a Ionic app right here. The entry components, well, normally we're using tags in HTML. We're not using that in Ionic. I'll get back to this later, but it's not complex, but without knowing about Angular, this is not easy to use. But if you do know about Angular, you will always add like a component tag inside your HTML, and we're not doing that in Ionic right now using these guys, so that's why we need the entry components. We'll have to get back to that later. The last thing is the providers. Now right now we have a few providers, but what we are going to end up having is services down here that we want to provide data for the system. So this is the app module, and in the app module right now we're explaining that our main component to go to is the My App to get all of this started. So that's kind of the module setup. Now we're going to try and have a look at the component in the next lesson and what my app is about.